Let's move on to Donald Trump. There's been some interesting developments with the Trump campaign and a wild rally that the man had in New Jersey, of all places, trying to make sure he gets some of the, I guess, crossover vote there from Pennsylvania and just trying to whip liberals up, going crazy by holding a major rally in a blue state. First, we'll kick off with the actual most consequential news. There was a report from Axios that Nikki Haley had been under consideration for vice president. Trump himself felt compelled to come out and immediately quash that. Let's put this up there on the screen. He put out a truth saying, Nikki Haley is not under consideration for the VP slot, but I wish her well. He signs it DJT, making it clear it was a personal message. I have no idea what to even make of that. I thought it was fanciful and foolish, the idea that you would ever even be considered for a vice president. I'm not really sure where these VP reports even come from. Just in general, Krystal, from all the people I've spoken to, there is no VP. So traditionally for campaigns, you have a committee. If you ever watch that movie, I forget exactly what it's called. It's on HBO, Game Change, I think it is.
Oh yeah, the Heilman Halpern one with Obama, that one.
But it goes, the movie is specifically about how they pick Sarah Palin as vice president.
Yeah.
The reason it's worth watching is that's the old way. There's a committee, people have selections, they're being vetted. That doesn't exist on the Trump campaign. Trump, in terms of his committee, is just hanging out with his friends at Mar-a-Lago and be like, what do you think of this guy? What do you think of that guy?
Yeah.
And he's just floating things to people constantly. He will make up his mind probably like the week before as to who he's gonna pick. He maybe has 3 or 4 people that are there, but anybody who's telling you that, oh, so-and-so is, you know, actively being considered, or there's a short list for all that, I don't believe it for a second.
Yeah, I think some of these press reports are basically like, they're sort of like trial balloons, which may be coming from Trump himself or maybe coming from people around him or who want to put some idea in the news so that, you know, as a way of getting it in front of Trump. Like, I'm sure that there are operatives in his circle who are seeing some of the numbers in these primaries. What was it, Indiana recently, where Nikki Haley got like 20% of the vote randomly, even though she's been out of the race for a long time. She got more than 100,000 votes, and it's a lot of suburban women, and they're looking at that going, this is kind of going to be a real problem for us. What if we brought her on the ticket? That would probably solve the problem. We'd probably be in a better position to try to win. Maybe that's true, maybe it's not, I really don't know. But some operative is thinking that. And then that operative is like, let me leak to the press that this is under consideration and see what the reception is as a little trial balloon. And then maybe if it's really positive, maybe that'll be a way to persuade Trump that this is actually a good direction to go in. So if I had to guess, it was something like that is how these things end up in the news media. But to Saagar's point, I wouldn't really take a lot of the VP speculation that is out there floating around right now too seriously because most of these people are just sort of testing the waters, seeing what the response is, playing their little games about their favorite candidates, et cetera, I think is mostly what's going on.
Exactly right. And if you go back and you think too about, you know, Mike Pence, I mean, it was a game time call. It really was not that, or, you know, it's not like it was happening months before. There were a lot of calls back and forth that leading up to it, and then it was like, okay, we're going with Mike Pence. So something very similar, given my experience with Trump world, it is always haphazard, last minute, and, you know, you will know when it actually something is announced. Now, in terms of his rally, there were some wild moments. So we had our team cut together what we thought were the most consequential. So let's take a listen.
There's so many people here. There's so many people here. Man, over 100,000 people. If this was supposed to be, you know, they thought they'd hit 40. So they more than doubled it. But you can't even see the end. I wish we didn't have the press here. I wish we moved them the hell back so they'd have, because they can't see in the back. Crooked Joe surrendered to the terrorists just like he surrendered to the Taliban, and now he's surrendering our college campuses to anarchists, jihadists, freaks, and anti-American extremists. Those people that you see putting up all that money for all those signs, you know, you can always tell a fake protest when every sign is beautifully made by a printer, all the same color, green signs, everything, they have the same, you know, they're all made by the same guy, and you say, the old days, they used to make them in the basement. Everybody would have a different sign. Now every sign is like green, beautiful. They do a beautiful job. In fact, remind me to find who that printer is because they've done a beautiful job. I support Israel's right to win its war on terror. Is that okay? I don't know. I don't know if that's good or bad politically. I don't care. You got to do what's right. Silence of the Lambs. Has anyone ever seen the Silence of the Lambs? The late, great Hannibal Lecter. He's a wonderful man. He oftentimes would have a friend for dinner. Remember the last scene? Excuse me, I'm about to have a friend for dinner as this poor doctor walked by. I'm about to have a friend for dinner, but Hannibal Lecter. Congratulations, the late, great Hannibal Lecter.
Incredible.
Late, great Hannibal
Incredible
Lecter.
stuff.
I'm not really sure where that one was coming from. Anyway, you could see, I did find it funny that Trump was going after protesters for having the same signs when everyone had the exact same signs behind him. I didn't see any handmade signs. By the way, that's part and parcel for campaigns. They just hand out signs, right?
Yeah.
Whatever coming to that.
Well,
anyway.
he's also the man who, remember when he first launched back in 2016, he paid people to be at the event.
Of course. I'll never forget. It turns out he didn't need him. It turns out he was the most popular one in the race. So I'll never forget that one.
Yeah, I mean, listen, not to pick, he's a mess. Like he'll say whatever.
He's all over the place.
He'll say whatever, gets applause in the moment. Obviously, he said all kinds of things all over the map with regard to Israel, but I think it's very clear the Republicans now are staking out the position of like, Biden's not being strong enough with Israel, not standing strong enough with Israel. And he said that thing, though, about Biden's surrender to the Taliban. That just irritates me because Trump's supposed position, remember, was that he wanted to withdraw with Afghanistan. He took a lot of heat for negotiating with the Taliban, you'll recall at the time, and signing that deal. And, Biden's the one who actually did it. And I'm, certainly one to criticize Biden here, but also praise him when it's merited. And that took courage to actually withdraw from Afghanistan. But Trump will just... we're going to play his attack on RFK Jr. It's the same thing. He'll just say anything that he thinks is going to resonate, whether it's consistent with his position or, in line with his position or not in line, or whether they actually support that position or whatever. It just goes with it. And I don't even know what to say about the Silence of the Lambs digression.
That is a whole, I still don't.
Classic.
That was
classic
a classic Trump in general. That's the way I would put it. Now, in terms of Trump and his legal and money problems, arguably more consequential, if Michael Cohen's testimony will be coming, that will, of course, be important because Cohen was one of the people who pled guilty previously in federal court. There's a charge that Trump is actually being pursued here in a state court. I know it gets complicated, but the TLDR is he is the most important witness because he's going to claim that it was specifically Stormy Daniels was paid off for election purposes. So let's see what he has to say, although he has been embracing the Diaper Don conspiracy. So he may be, or maybe it's not a conspiracy. What do I know? I'm not in the courtroom. There's also this development with the IRS, which is very important. Let's put this up there on the screen, where Trump may actually owe nearly $100 million in double dip tax breaks. So a previously unknown focus here of an IRS audit is, quote, a dubious accounting mover that effectively meant taking the same write-off twice on a Chicago skyscraper. So this is from a previous interest in the IRS tax filings of Donald Trump and of several other rich people. But basically what they say is that the revision by the IRS would actually create a new tax bill in the immediate term of $100 million plus interest and potential penalties. So very important here because he's already facing that $100 million bond that he had trouble putting up previously during his previous judgment around E. Jean Carroll and a defamation. So with this is also very important. And just in general, the more financial pressure he is under, the more it will impact his own campaign, and is why he's spending no money. And I would say also, linking back to the Israel stuff, I think one of the reasons he's taking this position is he needs money, and there's a lot of billionaires out there who are very supportive of Israel.
That is true.
Yeah,
that is
that's
true.
A huge part of it.
We'll have more on that later with regard to a billionaire who is very upset with Joe Biden about, his threats to halt weapon shipments to Israel. It just really gives you an inside peek into the type of pressure that can be applied directly to these politicians. Without getting too technical on what happened here, my understanding, any of you have been to Chicago, you've probably seen this giant Trump Tower. I think this was one of his last major, construction developments in recent years. It's been an utter catastrophe from a money-making perspective. He's, lost his ass on it. And effectively, he took the losses immediately. In fact, he argued to the IRS that the thing was, quote unquote, worthless because he didn't think he had any chance of recouping what he paid for the building himself. And then he was able to do some sort of complicated maneuvering to shift the technical ownership, even though it was to entities that he still controlled, and take a further loss on it. And so that's the piece that's in dispute. Now, the Trump people, I think they got in touch with Don Jr. or Eric or somebody in the Trump family, said, we've got a real theory of the case. We've got tax lawyers who say this is all legit. It's still under investigation, so it's not a done deal, but you know, this would be a significant financial hit to him. And he's always bragged about how he's very aggressive on his taxes and bragged about how, you know, it's basically for suckers to pay what, you know, without trying to do some legal trickery, et cetera, and use every loophole that's available. And frankly, that's quite consistent with the way that most billionaires operate with regard to our tax system. They've got the money for the lawyers to fight this out. The IRS is really outmatched and outgunned in that regard, which is why they spend so much more time focused on auditing working class people, because it's much easier to go after them. They're much more defenseless. So, you know, this is part and parcel of Trump's typical approach to the tax code, and is also, I think, part and parcel with how he's owing this other extraordinary amount with regard to the business fraud in New York, where he was found to have inflated or deflated asset values depending on what was convenient for him in the moment. Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.